all. Odyssey, the day is done. It is time now to let the noise of your world fade into silence. Find your most comfortable position, and for the next few moments, simply relax. Tonight's Odyssey is about to begin. Tonight, we journey to the western bank of the Nile, to a desolate valley where pharaohs sleep beneath mountains of stone. You will witness the greatest treasure hunt in archaeological history. You will walk among tomb builders and priests who guarded secrets with their lives, and you will discover why some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. This is not merely history. This is a story of mortality and immortality, of those who sought to conquer death itself. Whether you are here for a story to captivate your mind, or a grand narrative to accompany you to sleep, your journey starts now. If you enjoy these odysseys, subscribe and join us every time we travel to the past. Now, let us begin. The Nile runs north through Egypt like a vein of life through desert flesh. On its eastern bank, the sun rises over temples and palaces where pharaohs rule the living. On its western bank, where the sun descends each evening into the realm of death, the pharaohs prepare for their eternal journey. The year is 1479 BCE. The 18th dynasty holds Egypt in its powerful grip. Thutmose III has recently ascended to full power after the death of his stepmother, the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. The kingdom stretches from Nubia in the south to Syria in the north. Egypt has never been more powerful, more wealthy, more confident in its place as the center of creation. But power in this world is temporary. The Egyptians know this better than any people who have ever lived. They have watched the Nile flood and recede for thousands of years. They have seen kingdoms rise and fall, dynasties replace dynasties. They understand that all earthly things are impermanent, all except one thing, the soul. The soul, they believe, is eternal, but its immortality requires careful preparation. The body must be preserved, the tomb must be built, the spells must be recited, the offerings must be made. Without these things, the soul wanders lost in darkness, hungry and afraid, for all eternity. This is why, on the western bank of the Nile, across from the great city of Thebes, a secret valley becomes the most sacred ground in all of Egypt. It is a place where no one lives, a place where no one farms or builds homes, a place given entirely to the dead. The Egyptians call it Taseket Ma'at, the Great Field. We know it as the Valley of the Kings. Stand at the valley's entrance in the golden light of late afternoon. Before you stretches a winding canyon carved by ancient floods into the limestone hills. The cliffs rise on either side, pale yellow and white, their faces scarred by millennia of wind and rare rain. The air shimmers with heat. Nothing grows here. No trees offer shade. No grass softens the rocky ground. Even the insects seem to avoid this place. It is desolate. It is forbidding. It is perfect. The valley's isolation protects it from tomb robbers. Its dry climate preserves what is placed within its stone chambers. Its cliffs, when hollowed out, create natural defenses against those who would disturb the royal sleep. And perhaps most importantly, the tallest peak overlooking the valley is shaped like a pyramid, that most sacred of forms, a natural monument that requires no human hand to build. The priests who selected this site understood all of this. They also understood something else. The old pyramids of Giza and Saqqara, those massive monuments visible for miles across the desert, had become targets. Grave robbers had violated nearly every one. The treasures meant to sustain pharaohs in the afterlife had been stolen. The mummies had been desecrated. The eternal rest had been disturbed. No more. The royal tombs will still be magnificent, still be filled with treasures beyond imagination, but they will be hidden, secret, invisible to those who would desecrate them. The entrances will be concealed beneath sand and stone. The passages will be sealed and disguised. Guards will patrol. Priests will maintain silence. And the pharaohs will sleep undisturbed until the end of time itself. This is the plan. This is the hope. This is the dream that will shape the valley for the next 500 years. But dreams, even the dreams of pharaohs, do not always survive contact with human nature. And human nature includes greed, desperation, and the relentless hunger for gold. The sun has barely cleared the eastern hills when the workers arrive. They come in groups, carrying tools and water, their voices low in the morning stillness. These are the men who will carve eternity from living rock. They are not slaves, despite what later tales will claim. They are skilled artisans, well-paid craftsmen who live in a special village built for this purpose alone. The village sits in a side valley, hidden from casual view. It is called Set Mat, the place of truth. Today, we know it as Deir el Medina. The workers and their families live here, in modest stone houses pressed close together. They are provided with food, water, beer, and generous payment in grain and goods. In return, they keep the secrets of the royal tombs. They know the locations of every entrance. They know the layouts of the passages. They know where the treasure rooms lie and what they contain. They also know the penalty for revealing these secrets. Death. Not quick death, but slow death, the kind that serves as a warning to others. The kind that involves watching your family suffer first. So they keep silent. They work. They carve. The process begins when a pharaoh takes the throne. Immediately, the royal architects select a site in the valley. They measure and plan. They consult with priests about the proper orientation, the correct placement of chambers, the appropriate decorations. Nothing is left to chance. Every detail serves a purpose in guiding the pharaoh's soul through the dangers of the underworld. Then the workers arrive with their copper chisels and wooden mallets. They mark the cliff face where the entrance will be. They begin to cut. The work is brutal. The valley floor becomes an oven in summer, reaching temperatures that would kill an unprepared man in hours. But the workers are not unprepared. They know to labor in the early morning and late afternoon, to rest during the worst heat of midday. They know to drink often, to wet their linen headcloths, to watch each other for signs of sun sickness. The stone is hard, limestone mostly, though they sometimes strike bands of flint that turn their copper tools. They work in teams. One man holds the chisel, another strikes it with the mallet. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Strike, strike, strike. Chips of stone fly. Dust fills the air. The tunnel grows deeper, inch by inch, foot by foot. As they penetrate into the cliff, they create a descending corridor, down into the earth, down into the underworld, down into the realm of Osiris, the god who judges the dead. The corridor angles downward at a precise slope, calculated to guide the pharaoh's journey. It is not too steep, not too shallow. It is exactly right. After 20 or 30 feet, the corridor opens into a chamber. Then another corridor, descending further. Then another chamber. The tombs grow more elaborate as the dynasties progress. Early tombs are relatively simple. Later ones become vast underground palaces with multiple levels, dozens of rooms, miles of decorated walls. But the most important chamber is always the burial chamber. This is where the pharaoh's mummy will rest in its nested coffins of gold. This is where the most powerful protective spells are inscribed. This is where the transformation from mortal king to immortal god will be completed. The burial chambers are architectural marvels. Their ceilings soar 20 feet or more above the floor. Their walls are perfectly smooth, prepared for the artists who will come later. Some chambers have pillars to support the weight of the mountain above. Others have side rooms for storing the treasures and provisions needed for eternity. As the workers carve, they remove thousands of tons of limestone chips and dust. This debris cannot simply be piled outside the entrance. It would mark the tomb's location for any thief to see. Instead, the workers carry it away in baskets, distributing it across the valley floor, hiding it inside ravines, erasing all evidence of their labor. The work takes years. A single tomb might require a decade or more to complete. The workers grow old in the service of death. Their children follow them into the profession, learning the secrets, joining the silence. And always, there is the knowledge that they are creating something that must last forever. The tombs must be perfect, the walls must be smooth, the angles must be true. Any flaw might allow evil spirits to enter, any weakness might permit collapse. The pharaoh's eternity depends on their craftsmanship, so they work with care, with pride, with the understanding that they are not merely carving stone, they are building doorways between worlds. When the carving is complete, different artisans arrive. These are the painters, the scribes, the masters of color and form, who will transform bare limestone into something sacred. They work by the light of oil lamps and polished bronze mirrors that reflect sunlight deep into the tombs. The air they breathe is thick with dust and lamp smoke, yet their hands remain steady. They must be steady. One mistake, one slip of the brush could have eternal consequences. They call their workshop the Per Nefer, the beautiful house. But the true beautiful house is not the workshop. It is the tomb itself, transformed by their art into a guidebook for the afterlife. The walls must first be prepared. Plasterers smooth any irregularities with a thin layer of gypsum. This creates a perfect surface, slightly absorbent, ideal for pigment. When the plaster dries, the draftsmen arrive. They carry grids and measuring cords. Using red ochre, they sketch the scenes that will cover every inch of wall space. The scenes follow a prescribed order. Near the entrance, the pharaoh makes offerings to the gods. In the corridors, the books of the dead unfold their wisdom, showing the tests and trials that await the soul. Demons must be named to be defeated. Spells must be recited to pass through gates. The heart must be weighed against the feather of truth. Only the pure of heart can proceed. The rest are devoured by Amit, the soul eater, and cease to exist forever. In the burial chamber, the walls show the pharaoh's journey through the 12 hours of night. Each hour presents new dangers, serpents that breathe fire, lakes of flame, regions of total darkness. But the pharaoh is not alone. The gods protect him. Ra, the sun god, lights his way. Osiris judges him worthy. Anubis guides him through the shadows. The painters work from top to bottom, careful not to smudge what they have already completed. They use pigments ground from minerals and mixed with water and gum arabic, black from carbon, white from gypsum or limestone, red and yellow from iron oxides, blue from ground lapis lazuli, brought at enormous expense from Afghanistan, green from malachite. These colors have remained bright for over 3,000 years, a testament to the painter's skill. But the artists do more than simply paint. They are working magic. In Egyptian belief, images have power. A painted loaf of bread can feed the soul. A painted servant can perform tasks. A painted boat can carry the deceased across celestial waters. The tomb becomes a complete world containing everything needed for eternity. And there is writing everywhere. Hieroglyphs cover the walls in dense columns and rows. These are not mere decorations. They are spells, prayers, instructions. The scribes who inscribe them work with absolute precision. A miswritten hieroglyph could have disastrous consequences. It might bind the pharaoh's soul instead of freeing it. It might summon the wrong god or offend the right one. The scribes use brushes made from reeds, their tips frayed to hold pigment. They dip these in cakes of ink, black for most text, red for important passages and section headings. Their handwriting is beautiful, each hieroglyph perfectly formed, each line straight and even. Sometimes they include their own names, hidden in small cartouches where only the most careful observer would notice. A tiny claim to immortality. I was here. I made this. Remember me. The work progresses over years. As sections are completed, they are checked by master artisans and priests. Any errors must be corrected. Any imperfections must be remedied. Nothing less than perfection is acceptable. This is for a god, after all. The god who was once their king, who will become their intercessor with the divine. When at last the decoration is complete, the tomb stands ready. The walls glow with color even in lamplight. The hieroglyphs march in perfect formation. The gods and demons wait in painted stillness for the moment they will be needed. Now only one thing remains. The pharaoh must die. The day comes, as it must come for all living things. The pharaoh dies, perhaps from illness, perhaps from age, perhaps from causes the court physicians cannot understand. It does not matter. Death is the doorway, and the doorway stands open. Immediately the kingdom moves into a choreographed response, perfected over centuries. The body must be preserved. The funeral must be prepared. The succession must be secured. All of this must happen quickly, but without unseemly haste. Everything must be proper. The gods are watching. The embalmers take the body to their workshop on the edge of the desert. These men are both technicians and priests. They understand anatomy and chemistry. They also understand the religious significance of every step in their process. They work in a building called the Wabet, the place of purification. Only the initiated may enter. What happens inside is secret, sacred, necessary. The process takes 70 days. The internal organs are removed through a small incision, treated with natron, and placed in 4 special jars guarded by the sons of Horus. The brain is extracted through the nose with long hooks and discarded. The Egyptians do not believe the brain is important. The heart remains in the body. The heart is the seat of the soul, the part that will be weighed in judgment. The body is packed inside and out with natron, a naturally occurring salt that draws out all moisture. It rests for 40 days in this state, slowly desiccating, becoming preserved. When the natron is removed, the body is washed, oiled, and wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen. Amulets are placed between the layers. Spells are recited. Every action serves to protect and empower the soul. While the embalmers work, craftsmen create the coffins. For a pharaoh, there are multiple layers. The mummy rests in a coffin shaped like a body, painted with the pharaoh's features, inscribed with protective spells. This fits inside a larger coffin, and that inside a larger still. Finally, all of these rest within a massive stone sarcophagus that must be positioned in the tomb before the funeral, because it is too large to fit through the corridors afterward. The sarcophagus is a marvel of stoneworking. Carved from a single block of granite or quartzite, it might weigh several tons. Its lid is equally massive. Together, they form a nearly impenetrable barrier. Let the tomb robbers come with their tools and torches. Let them penetrate the sealed doors. They will break their bronze chisels against this stone before they reach the mummy inside. On the 70th day, the funeral procession forms. The new pharaoh leads the mourners. Priests chant. Professional mourners wail and throw dust on their heads. The mummy travels on a sledge pulled by oxen, accompanied by the coffins and the treasure that will be sealed in the tomb. The procession crosses the Nile by boat. The western shore is crowded with those who have come to witness this moment. A pharaoh's funeral happens perhaps once in a generation. It is spectacle and solemnity combined. It is the visible proof that the divine order continues. One god king has departed. Another has taken his place. Ma'at, the cosmic balance, is maintained. The procession winds up to the Valley of the Kings. At the tomb entrance, final rituals are performed. The opening of the mouth ceremony is crucial. A priest uses special tools to symbolically open the mummy's mouth and eyes, restoring the senses needed in the afterlife. Without this ritual, the pharaoh would be blind and mute in the realm of the dead. Then the mummy and its treasures are taken into the tomb. The coffins are nested together. The body is placed in the sarcophagus. The canopic jars are positioned nearby. The treasure fills additional chambers. Furniture, clothing, weapons, food, wine, jewelry, games, perfumes, everything needed for comfort in the afterlife is arranged with care. When everything is in place, the priests withdraw. The doors are closed. The corridors are filled with rubble. The entrance is sealed with plaster and stamped with official seals. Guards are posted. The priests depart. The pharaoh is alone in the darkness, beginning the journey through the underworld, facing the judgment that awaits all souls. even those who ruled as gods. Above, in the valley, the workers carefully disguise the entrance. Sand is swept to cover the plaster. Stones are arranged to look natural. Within weeks, no casual observer could point to the spot and say, "There, that is where a pharaoh sleeps." The secret is kept. The valley returns to silence. The sun sets behind the western cliffs, as it has for millions of years, as it will for millions more. And beneath the stone, in absolute darkness, the pharaoh waits for eternity. But eternity, it turns out, is not as permanent as the priests believed. Human greed is patient, human need is persistent, and human memory is long. The workers who built the tombs know the secrets. They pass this knowledge to their sons, who pass it to their sons. For a generation, perhaps two, the workers remain faithful. They are well paid. Their families are provided for. The state is strong. Why risk everything for gold? But time passes. Dynasties weaken. The central government loses its grip on distant provinces. Wars with foreign powers drain the treasury. The payments to the workers become irregular, then inadequate. Then they stop altogether. The workers look at their hungry children. They remember the rooms filled with gold. They remember the wine jars in the grain stores, placed in tombs for the dead, while the living starve. They begin to think thoughts that would have been unthinkable to their grandfathers. We do not know the name of the first man who violated a royal tomb in the Valley of the Kings. We do not know which tomb he entered or what he took. The records are silent on this detail, but we know it happened because tomb robbery is mentioned in papyri from the end of the 18th dynasty. By the 19th dynasty, it has become common enough to warrant special police forces and investigative tribunals. The robbers work at night. They come in small groups, bringing tools, torches, and sacks for carrying treasure. They know exactly where to dig. They know which corridors to follow. They know which chambers hold the richest rewards. Breaking into a tomb is dangerous work. The sealed doors must be opened quietly. The rubble-filled passages must be cleared enough to pass through. The work must be done in darkness or near darkness to avoid attracting attention from the guards who patrol the valley. Once inside, the robbers face a maze of passages and chambers. They have only torchlight to guide them. The air is stale, sometimes poisonous, with accumulated gases. The tombs are not designed for easy navigation. They include false passages, concealed pits, deliberately confusing layouts. These features were meant to foil thieves. Often they succeed, but when the robbers reach the burial chamber, they find wealth beyond imagination. Gold coffins that must be cut apart because they are too heavy to carry whole. Jewelry set with precious stones, golden statues of gods, furniture overlaid with gold leaf, weapons inlaid with electrum, wine jars still sealed after centuries, perfumes that still carry their scent, linen so fine it is nearly transparent. They take what they can carry. They hide it. They return on other nights for more. They melt down the gold to eliminate identifying marks. They sell the goods through intermediaries to merchants who ask no questions. The wealth enters circulation. The tombs are emptied. The pharaohs lie naked in darkness, their eternal rest destroyed, their afterlife provisions stolen. When the thefts are discovered, investigations begin. The authorities are thorough. Suspects are arrested, interrogated, tortured. Confessions are extracted, but the stolen goods are rarely recovered. The gold has been melted. The jewelry has been broken up. The evidence has vanished into the markets of Thebes. Some robbers are caught and executed. Their bodies are impaled on stakes as warnings, but for every robber punished, 10 more remain free, and 20 more are inspired by the stories of riches. The robberies continue. The tombs are violated one by one. The priests who guard the valley become desperate. They begin moving mummies from robbed tombs to secure locations. They consolidate treasures. They enhance security, but they are fighting a losing battle. The tombs were designed to be permanent, unchanging. The defenses were meant to be absolute. When those defenses are breached, there is no backup plan. By the end of the 20th dynasty, the situation has become catastrophic. The valley is no longer secure. The great experiment has failed. The hidden tombs are no more protected than the ancient pyramids were. Human ingenuity in pursuit of theft has overcome human ingenuity in service of the dead. The priests make a radical decision. They will save what they can. They will gather the royal mummies from their violated tombs. They will hide them together in a secret location, a cache that even the tomb workers do not know about. There, away from golden treasures that attract thieves, the pharaohs might finally rest in peace. Working in secrecy, the priests begin the transfers. One by one, the mummies are moved. The great warrior king Thutmose III, the magnificent Ramesses II, Seti I, whose tomb was one of the most beautiful ever created, Ahmose, who expelled the Hyksos and founded the new kingdom. They are wrapped in new linen. They are labeled with brief texts explaining who they are and when they were moved. They are placed in a tomb that was never finished, in a cliff face away from the main valley. When the work is complete, the entrance is sealed and concealed. The priests depart. No records are kept of the location. The knowledge is trusted to only a handful of men, who pass it to their successors in secret. And there, in the
Welcome
darkness,
to
the pharaohs sleep
creating
once more.
voiceovers.
The tomb robbers search the valley and find nothing but empty chambers and broken seals. The treasures are gone. The golden age is over. The valley falls silent. Centuries pass. The new kingdom collapses. The priests who knew the secrets die without revealing them. Egypt is conquered by Persians, then Greeks, then Romans. New religions replace the old. The worship of Osiris and Ra fades into memory. The Valley of the Kings becomes a curiosity, a place where ancient tombs lie open to the wind, their hieroglyphs no longer readable, their purpose forgotten. The pharaohs sleep on in their hidden cache, unknown, unremembered, waiting. 3,000 years pass like sand through fingers. Egypt is no longer ruled by pharaohs. It is a province of Rome, then of Byzantium, then part of the Islamic Caliphate. The people who live in the mud brick villages near the valley are Muslim or Christian. They speak Arabic, not ancient Egyptian. To them, the hieroglyphs are just decorations. The tombs are curiosities from a pagan past. But they remember that treasures once filled these tombs. The stories have persisted through generations, distorted but not entirely forgotten. And so the plundering continues, though now the plunderers are not workers who built the tombs, but locals who see the valley as a source of goods to sell to the strange foreigners who have begun to arrive. These foreigners are Europeans. They come first as travelers, then as scholars, then as collectors. They are fascinated by ancient Egypt. Its monuments inspire awe. Its hieroglyphs present a tantalizing mystery. Its mummies provoke both revulsion and obsessive interest. Egypt becomes fashionable in the salons of London and Paris. Having an Egyptian artifact becomes a mark of sophistication and wealth. Where there is demand, supply follows. The locals become experts at finding and extracting antiquities. They explore every accessible tomb in the valley. They dig through rubble, looking for anything that might have value. Mummies are unwrapped to search for amulets and jewelry. Painted walls are cut apart so scenes can be sold separately. Sarcophagi are broken up for easier transport. The destruction is comprehensive and careless. Some of the foreign visitors are genuine scholars. They measure and map. They copy hieroglyphs. They attempt to understand what they are seeing. But even the scholars are not innocent. They take what they can. Museums in Europe and America compete for acquisitions. The market for Egyptian antiquities becomes lucrative. Permission to excavate is granted to those with connections, not those with qualifications. The papyri that record the tomb robberies of ancient times are themselves excavated and sold. Scholars translate them, and discover that the violation of the Valley of the Kings is not a modern phenomenon, but an ancient tradition. This knowledge does nothing to stop the plundering. If anything, it provides justification. If the tombs were robbed in antiquity, what harm is there in taking what remains? Napoleon's expedition to Egypt in 1798 brings scientists and scholars along with soldiers. They document the monuments in unprecedented detail. Their publication, The Description de l'Égypte, introduces Egyptian civilization to a wide European audience. The fascination intensifies. The plundering accelerates. In 1799, the Rosetta Stone is discovered. This single artifact, inscribed with the same text in hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and Greek, provides the key to deciphering the ancient language. Jean-François Champollion works on the puzzle for years. In 1822, he succeeds. Suddenly, the hieroglyphs are no longer mysterious decorations. They are readable text. The ancient Egyptians can speak to the modern world. This breakthrough should usher in a new age of careful, scholarly archaeology. Instead, the plundering becomes more targeted. Now, the collectors know what they are looking for. They want inscribed objects, carved reliefs, papyri with writing. The mummies themselves become commodities. Public unwrappings become entertainment in European cities. Ground-up mummy is sold as medicine. The bodies of pharaohs are treated with less respect than livestock. In the Valley of the Kings, tourists begin to arrive. They scratch their names into the painted walls. They chip off pieces of reliefs as souvenirs. They pose for photographs beside sarcophagi. The tombs are no longer sacred spaces. They are attractions, museums without curators, open to anyone who wanders in. Some tombs are converted into temporary lodgings for excavation teams. Others are used to store equipment. The tomb of Ramesses VI becomes a favorite tourist destination because its decorations are particularly well preserved. Thousands of visitors walk through each year, their feet wearing grooves in the stone floors, their breath raising the humidity that slowly damages the paintings. A few voices speak out against the destruction. Some scholars advocate for better protection of the monuments. Some argue that excavation should be conducted systematically, with records kept and finds preserved. But these voices are outnumbered by those who see Egypt as an inexhaustible source of treasures to be extracted and sold. The local families who control access to the tombs become powerful. They know which sites are most likely to produce valuable finds. They direct excavators to promising locations. They take a percentage of whatever is discovered. Some become wealthy. Their homes fill with antiquities waiting to be sold. Their warehouses contain mummies, coffins, statues, and jewelry, all available for the right price. The Egyptian government, such as it is, attempts to exert control. Laws are passed requiring permits for excavation. An antiquities service is established. Museums are built to house important finds. But enforcement is weak. Bribes are common. Smuggling is rampant. The heritage of ancient Egypt continues to drain away to foreign museums and private collections. Yet, beneath all this chaos, beneath the plundering and the tourism and the commercial excavations, the pharaohs, in their hidden cache, still sleep undisturbed. The tomb robbers of antiquity never found them. The European collectors have not found them. Their secret has survived 3,000 years of continuous human activity in the valley. But secrets, no matter how well kept, do not remain secret forever. The year is 1871. In the village of Kurna, on the west bank of the Nile, near the Valley of the Kings, a family possesses a secret that is making them wealthy. The Abd el-Rasul family has access to a source of high-quality antiquities. Papyri appear in the markets of Cairo and Luxor, bearing royal names. Shaptis, the small funerary figurines, show up by the dozen. Canopic jars, jewelry, artifacts that could only have come from royal tombs begin to circulate. The authorities notice. These are not ordinary tomb findings. These artifacts are too fine, too well preserved, too consistently royal in nature. Someone has found something significant, But where? And how can they be keeping it secret? Gaston Maspero, the director of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, begins an investigation. He tracks the artifacts back to the Abd el-Rasul family. He questions them. They deny everything. They know nothing about royal tombs. They are simple villagers. The artifacts must be coming from someone else. Maspero is not convinced, but he has no proof. He cannot search every house in the village. He cannot arrest people without evidence, and the local authorities are not inclined to help. The Abd el-Rasul family is respected. They have connections. They are generous with bribes. For 10 years, the situation continues. More artifacts appear on the market. More questions are asked. More denials are given. The secret holds. But in 1881, something changes. The Abd el-Rasul brothers have a falling out. The details are unclear. Perhaps it is an argument over money. Perhaps one brother feels he is not getting his fair share. Perhaps the burden of the secret has become too great. Whatever the reason, one brother decides to reveal what the family has been hiding. Ahmed Abd el-Rasul approaches the authorities. He offers to show them something in exchange for a reward and immunity from prosecution. The officials agree. On July 6, 1881, Ahmed leads a small group to a location in the cliffs south of the Valley of the Kings. The entrance is well concealed. A narrow shaft drops 40 feet into the rock. At the bottom, a passage leads into the cliff. The passage is rough, undecorated, clearly not a royal tomb. It appears to be an abandoned tomb from an earlier period, perhaps intended for a nobleman, but never finished. The officials descend into the shaft by rope. They light torches. They follow Ahmed into the passage, and then they see something that makes them stop in astonishment. Coffins, dozens of coffins, stacked against the walls, piled in chambers, filling every available space, and on the coffins, cartouches bearing the names of pharaohs: Thutmose III, Rameses VI, Seti, Ahmose, the greatest rulers of the new kingdom, the golden age of Egyptian power, gathered here in this rough, forgotten tomb. The mummies have been rewrapped at some point in antiquity. Brief hieratic inscriptions on the wrappings explain what happened. The priests of the 21st dynasty, facing epidemic tomb robbery, moved the royal mummies to this secure location. They dated their work. They signed their names. They were preserving what they could from the chaos of their time. And here, the pharaohs have rested for 3,000 years, unknown to the tomb robbers, unknown to the collectors, unknown to everyone, except one family who stumbled upon them and quietly profited from the discovery for a decade. The officials realize they are standing in the greatest archaeological find in history. This is not a tomb with some artifacts. This is the royal family of the new kingdom. This is the physical embodiment of Egyptian power and glory. These are the actual bodies of the people who built the temples, who fought the Hittites, who expanded Egypt to its greatest extent, who were worshipped as gods. Emil Brugsch, who is in charge of the recovery operation, faces an immediate crisis. The cache must be emptied quickly. If word spreads before the mummies can be secured, there will be chaos. Locals will loot what they can. Rival factions might fight over the spoils. The authorities might be overwhelmed. Brugsch makes a decision. He will empty the entire cache in 48 hours. He hires local workers, swearing them to secrecy. They begin the delicate work of bringing the coffins to the surface. Each one must be hauled up the shaft by ropes. Each one is heavy, awkward, irreplaceable. The workers toil through day and night. The coffins emerge one after another. Rameses the Great, who ruled for 67 years, who covered Egypt with monuments, who claimed to be the greatest pharaoh who ever lived. Thutmose III, the Napoleon of ancient Egypt, who led 17 military campaigns and never lost a battle. Seti I, whose tomb is considered the most beautiful ever created. Ahmose, the liberator who expelled foreign occupiers and founded a dynasty. As the coffins are brought to the surface, They are carried down to the Nile. A steamship is waiting. The mummies are loaded aboard. And then something happens that Brugsch will remember for the rest of his life. As the ship steams north toward Cairo, carrying the bodies of the ancient kings, villagers line the banks of the Nile. They watch the ship pass, and the women wail. They throw dust on their heads. They perform the traditional mourning rituals that Egyptian women have performed for thousands of years. These people are Muslims. They do not worship the old gods. They do not believe in the Egyptian afterlife, but they recognize something sacred passing by. They understand, in some wordless way, that these are their ancestors, the builders of the civilization they live among. They mourn because something is being taken from them, something they did not know they possessed, but now realize they are losing. The ship reaches Cairo. The mummies are taken to the Egyptian Museum. There they are unwrapped, examined, catalogued. Scientists measure the bones, study the teeth, analyze the preservation techniques. The pharaohs are subjected to more scrutiny in death than they ever faced in life. And in the Valley of the Kings, the investigation continues. If one secret cache existed, might there be others? Are there tombs that were never robbed, never found, still waiting in the limestone cliffs? The answer is yes, but finding them will require patience, persistence, and luck. The discovery of the royal cache transforms Egyptian archaeology. It proves that major finds are still possible. It attracts new funding, new excavators, new energy to the field. The Valley of the Kings becomes the focus of systematic exploration for the first time in history. Serious archaeologists begin to replace treasure hunters. These new excavators keep detailed records. They photograph everything. They preserve context, not just objects. They understand that the value of a discovery lies not merely in the gold, but in the knowledge it provides about how people lived and died 3,000 years ago. One of these new archaeologists is Theodore Davis, an American lawyer who has made a fortune and retired to pursue his passion for Egyptology. Between 1902 and 1914, Davis holds the concession to excavate in the Valley of the Kings. He funds expedition after expedition. He discovers tomb after tomb. Some of these tombs are minor. Some have been robbed in antiquity, but others yield spectacular finds. The tomb of Yuya and Thuya, the parents of Queen Tiye, is found nearly intact in 1905. It is filled with furniture, jewelry, and beautifully preserved mummies. The discovery makes international headlines. Davis finds the tomb of Horemheb, the general who became pharaoh. He finds the tomb of Sipta and Tawasret. He finds caches of artifacts from the mysterious Amarna period, when the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten tried to replace Egypt's traditional polytheism with worship of a single god. By 1912, Davis has excavated so thoroughly that he declares the valley exhausted. He believes every tomb has been found. He writes, "I fear that the Valley of the Kings is now exhausted." He gives up his concession and moves on to other sites. But one man disagrees. Howard Carter, a British archaeologist who has spent years working in Egypt, believes that one tomb remains undiscovered. The tomb of Tutankhamun, a minor pharaoh from the 18th dynasty who died young and ruled for less than a decade. Historical records mention him. His name appears in a few inscriptions, but his tomb has never been found. Carter reasons that the tomb must be in the valley somewhere. If it had been outside the valley, it would have been discovered long ago. If it had been robbed in antiquity, some record would exist. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It is evidence that the tomb is hidden, waiting. Carter needs funding. He approaches Lord Carnarvon, a wealthy British aristocrat who collects Egyptian antiquities. Carter makes his case. The valley is not exhausted. One tomb remains. Let me search for it. Give me time and resources. I will find it. Carnarvon agrees. He secures the concession to excavate in the valley. Carter begins his search in 1917. He divides the valley floor into sections. He excavates each section systematically, moving thousands of tons of debris, digging down to bedrock, leaving nothing to chance. Year after year, he searches. He finds small things, artifacts, pottery fragments, evidence of ancient activity, but no tomb, no doorway leading into the rock, no sign of Tutankhamun. The work is exhausting. The heat is brutal. The dust is everywhere. The workers grow tired of moving rubble with little to show for it. Carnarvon grows impatient. The money is running out. Carter's reputation is suffering. Other archaeologists whisper that he is wasting his time and his patron's fortune. By 1922, Carnarvon has had enough. He tells Carter this will be the last season. If nothing is found, the excavation will end. Carter will have to admit defeat. Carter returns to the valley for one final attempt. He focuses on an area near the entrance to the tomb of Ramesses VI. This section has not been excavated because doing so would block tourist access to the Ramesses tomb. But Carter no longer cares about convenience. This is his last chance. The workers begin clearing the rubble. They dig down through layers of ancient debris. And on November 4th, 1922, they find a step. A single step, cut into the bedrock, leading down. Carter orders them to continue carefully. More steps appear. 1, 2, 3, 12 steps in total, leading to a sealed doorway. Carter examines the doorway. It bears the seal of the royal necropolis. Jackals above 9 captives. The standard seal used to secure royal tombs, but it also shows signs of having been opened and resealed in antiquity. Tomb robbers found this place, but did they empty it? Carter faces a choice. He could break through immediately. But Lord Carnarvon is in England. After years of funding this search, he deserves to be present for the discovery. Carter makes the decision to wait. He cables Carnarvon. At last have made wonderful discovery in valley. A magnificent tomb with seals intact. Recovered same for your arrival. Congratulations. He orders the excavation backfilled to protect the doorway. Then he waits. 2 weeks pass. Carnarvon makes the long journey from England to Egypt. He arrives on November 23rd with his daughter, Evelyn. The excavation resumes. The workers clear the steps again. They expose the full doorway. Carter notes more details. The seals include cartouches bearing a name, Tutankhamun. This is it. This is the tomb he has searched for. But the signs of ancient opening and resealing are troubling. The tomb has been violated. The question is, how much was taken? Was this a complete robbery that left nothing behind? Or did the thieves take only what they could carry, leaving the bulk of the treasure intact? There is only one way to find out. On November 26, 1922, Carter makes a hole in the upper left corner of the doorway. He inserts a candle to test for foul gases. The flame flickers but burns steady. The air is breathable. He widens the hole. He holds the candle up and peers inside. At first, he sees nothing. His eyes need time to adjust to the darkness. Then, as Carnarvon asks, "Can you see anything?" Carter replies with words that will become famous. "Yes, wonderful things." The candlelight reflects off gold. Gold everywhere. Statues, couches, boxes, chariots, all gleaming in the flickering light. The chamber is packed with treasures, stacked to the ceiling, arranged haphazardly, as if placed in haste. It is chaos. It is glory. It is everything Carter dreamed of and more. The tomb has been robbed, yes, but the robberies were incomplete. The thieves took portable jewelry and perhaps some gold objects, but they left the vast majority of the treasure. They were interrupted, or frightened away, or ran out of time. The ancient officials resealed the tomb, and there it has remained, sealed and secret, for 3,200 years. Carter and Carnarvon stand at the threshold of the greatest archaeological discovery in history, a tomb that will change everything we know about ancient Egypt. A pharaoh who died young and was forgotten, will become the most famous of all the rulers of the Nile. But they do not know this yet. They know only that they have found wonderful things, and that tomorrow they will enter the tomb and see what else awaits in the darkness. The excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb is not a matter of days or weeks. It takes 10 years. Carter understands that this is not a treasure hunt. It is a scientific excavation of the most important archaeological site ever discovered. Everything must be documented. Everything must be preserved. Every object has a story to tell, if approached with patience and care. The first chamber, which Carter calls the antechamber, contains approximately 700 objects. Each one must be photographed in place. Each one must be numbered and catalogued. Each one must be carefully removed, conserved if necessary, and transported to a conservation laboratory. Nothing can be rushed. Nothing can be damaged. The objects are astonishing in their variety and preservation. There are 3 great couches shaped like animals, lions with gilded heads and bodies, a hippopotamus goddess, a composite creature with a crocodile head. These were intended to protect the pharaoh in the afterlife, to carry him through dangerous realms. There are chariots, their wooden frames overlaid with gold. Tutankhamun used these in life, perhaps in hunts or military training. They show signs of wear. The young king actually rode them. Now they will carry him through eternity. There are boxes containing clothing. The linens have survived for 3 millennia. They are fine, carefully woven, some almost transparent. There are sandals, gloves, headrests, games, walking sticks. The mundane and the magnificent exist side by side. There are statues of the king himself, life-sized figures of black wood covered with gold. They stand as guardians, their eyes seeing into both worlds. They are beautiful and slightly unsettling, these statues that capture a young man who died at 18 or 19, whose face we can see preserved in painted wood. And there are signs of the tomb robberies. Some boxes have been opened and their contents scattered. The arrangement is chaotic, as if someone tried to tidy up after the thieves, but gave up. It is clear that ancient officials entered after the robberies, attempted to restore order, and resealed the tomb. They did their best. It was good enough to preserve the tomb for 3,000 years. Behind the antechamber lies another sealed doorway. Carter knows what this must be, the burial chamber itself. But he does not rush to open it. The antechamber must be cleared first. Every object must be removed and conserved. Only then can they proceed deeper. The work progresses through 1923. Each day brings new discoveries. Each object reveals something about the young pharaoh, about Egyptian craftsmanship, about the beliefs that drove them to fill a tomb with such treasures. The world watches. Newspapers run stories about each new find. Tutankhamun becomes a celebrity, more famous in death than he ever was in life. On February 17, 1923, Carter finally opens the sealed doorway to the burial chamber. Before him stands a sight that makes even his experienced eyes widen. A wall of gold, a shrine of gilded wood that fills almost the entire chamber, so large that its sides nearly touch the walls on all 4 sides. There are only a few inches of clearance. The workmen who built this shrine must have assembled it inside the chamber, because it could never have fit through the doorways. The shrine is covered with protective spells and hieroglyphs. It is sealed with bolts. Carter opens them carefully. Inside is another shrine, and inside that, another, and another. 4 shrines in total, nested like boxes, each covered with gold, each inscribed with spells, each sealed. It takes weeks to dismantle the shrines carefully enough to preserve them while accessing what lies inside. But finally, Carter reaches the innermost shrine. He opens its doors. Before him stands a quartzite sarcophagus, the massive stone container that he knew must be here. Its lid weighs more than a ton. Carved from a single piece of stone, painted with protective goddesses at the corners, it is both beautiful and imposing. Using a system of ropes and pulleys, Carter's team lifts the lid. Inside the sarcophagus is a golden coffin, shaped like a human body, decorated with exquisite workmanship. It is the first of 3 coffins, nested inside each other. The outermost is gilded wood. The second is also gilded wood, even more ornately decorated. And the third coffin, is solid gold. It weighs nearly 300 pounds. It is shaped as the king in the form of Osiris, the god of the dead. In his crossed hands, he holds the crook and flail of kingship. His face is serene, idealized, eternally young. This is how Tutankhamun wished to be seen, as a god, eternal and perfect. Inside this golden coffin lies the mummy itself. 3,200 years have passed since the embalmers completed their work. The wrappings are dark with age, and the resins used in preservation. But the mummy is intact. Tutankhamun has reached the moment the ancient Egyptians worked so hard to achieve. His body has survived. His tomb has protected him. He has, in a sense, achieved immortality. Carter faces a dilemma. To study the mummy properly, the wrappings must be removed, but the resins have hardened over the millennia, gluing the wrappings to each other and to the body. The unwrapping is difficult. Some damage is unavoidable. When the process is complete, they can see the pharaoh himself, his bones, his teeth, the remains of his flesh. A young man, perhaps 18 or 19 years old when he died. What killed him? That question will be debated for decades. No obvious cause presents itself. There is evidence of a broken leg, but it is unclear whether this happened before or after death. There is no sign of violence. Perhaps it was illness. Perhaps an accident. Perhaps the broken leg became infected, and the infection spread. In an age before antibiotics, even a minor injury could be fatal. The mummy wears treasures. A golden mask, one of the most recognizable artifacts in human history. Solid gold, inlaid with lapis lazuli and colored glass. It shows the pharaoh's idealized face. Serene, beautiful, divine. This mask will become the face of ancient Egypt to the modern world. There are amulets between the layers of wrapping, scarabs for the heart, protective symbols, spells written on gold sheets. Everything the priests knew how to do to ensure the pharaoh safe passage through the underworld has been done. Tutankhamun was prepared, as well as the greatest kings before him, despite his youth, despite his short reign. The burial chamber also has 2 small side rooms. The treasury contains more objects, jewelry, statues, model boats, the canopic shrine that holds the king's preserved internal organs. The objects fill the space, stacked carefully, arranged with thought. The 4th chamber, the annex, is chaos. The tomb robbers clearly focus their efforts here. Boxes are overturned, contents are scattered. The ancient officials gave up trying to reorganize this room. They simply sealed it and left it in disarray. Every object has to be carefully removed, conserved, studied, catalogued. The work continues through the 1920s. Carter is meticulous to the point of obsession. He documents everything. He tolerates no shortcuts. This tomb will be excavated properly, or not at all. The world remains fascinated. Books are written. Exhibitions are organized. Replicas of the treasures are made and displayed around the world. Tutankhamun becomes synonymous with ancient Egypt. A minor king who ruled briefly and accomplished little has become more famous than Ramesses II, who ruled for 67 years and covered Egypt with monuments. But fame has a shadow. Soon after the tomb is opened, Lord Carnarvon dies of an infection from a mosquito bite. The newspapers seize on this. They create the myth of the curse of the pharaohs. Anyone who disturbs a royal tomb will die. The Egyptians place curses on the tombs to protect them. None of this is true. There are no curses inscribed in Tutankhamun's tomb. The ancient Egyptians did not curse their tombs because they wanted people to visit, to make offerings, to maintain the memory of the deceased. Carnarvon's death was simply an unfortunate accident in an era before antibiotics, in a region where infections were common. But the myth persists. It becomes part of the story, the curse of the Pharaohs, as if the ancient kings were so powerful that they could reach across 3,000 years to punish those who disturbed them.
Carter completes his work in 1932. The tomb has been emptied. The treasures have been conserved. Most will go to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, though some items remain in storage. Carter writes his reports. He publishes his findings. And in the Valley of the Kings, Tutankhamun's tomb stands empty for the first time in 3,000 years. The walls still bear their protective spells. The paintings still show the young king's journey through the underworld. But the mummy, after 10 years of study, has been returned to its coffin and sarcophagus. The 1920s become, in part, defined by Egyptomania. Everything Egyptian becomes fashionable. Theaters are built with Egyptian motifs. Furniture is decorated with lotus flowers and scarabs. Women wear jewelry inspired by the treasures of the tomb. The Art Deco movement incorporates Egyptian geometry and symbolism. This is not the first wave of Egyptian influence on Western culture. The Romans were fascinated by Egypt. The Renaissance rediscovered Egyptian wisdom texts. For the first time, people can see exactly what a pharaoh's burial looked like. The photographs and exhibitions make ancient Egypt tangible, real, accessible. But there is a darker side to this fascination. The treasures of Tutankhamun remain in Egypt in the Cairo Museum. But thousands of other Egyptian artifacts have been removed from Egypt over the centuries. Museums in London, Paris, Berlin, New York hold vast collections. Private collectors own pieces that have never been studied by scholars. The question of ownership becomes contentious.
The discovery of star clocks in
The Egyptian government demands the return of significant pieces from foreign museums. The museums resist. They argue that they have preserved these objects better than Egypt could have. They argue that the artifacts belong to all humanity, not just to Egypt. They argue that their legal ownership is clear. The debate continues today. Who owns the past? The nation where artifacts were found, the museums that preserved them. Humanity in general, there are no easy answers. The treasures of Egypt have become symbols in a larger conversation about colonialism, cultural heritage, and the responsibilities of the present to the past. Thousands of visitors arrive each year. They walk through the tombs,
Welcome to Sleepless Ancient
photograph
Odyssey.
the paintings,
The day is
marvel
done.
at the
It is
engineering.
time now to let the
The
noise of your
valley
world
becomes
fade
one of the
into
world's
silence.
most famous
Find your most
archaeological
comfortable
sites.
position,
It
and for the next
generates
few moments,
revenue for
simply
Egypt.
relax.
It provides
Tonight's
employment
Odyssey is
for
about to begin.
locals. But
Tonight,
it also
we journey to the
creates
land of the Nile,
problems. The
beneath
paintings
skies
in the
that have
tombs
watched over
begin
humanity
to
for 5,000
deteriorate.
years.
The
You will
humidity from human breath damages the pigments. The carbon dioxide exhaled by thousands of visitors changes the atmosphere in the sealed chambers. Fungus begins to grow on some walls. The very act of viewing the tombs threatens to destroy them. Egypt's antiquities authorities face difficult decisions. Should they close the tombs to protect them? Should they limit visitor numbers? But which visitors should be allowed and which excluded? Should they create replicas so people can experience the tombs without damaging the originals? But will people be satisfied with replicas? Careful monitoring tracks the condition of the paintings. Conservation work continues. The balance between preservation and access is delicate and constantly negotiated. Meanwhile, archaeology in the valley continues. New technologies allow new discoveries. Ground-penetrating